Thank you. We're live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2:30 UED meeting. Public Works, my bad. I grabbed the wrong notebook. I got it. All righty. Call to order. Everybody
Present.
present?
The important ones are.
All right.
Yeah, we've done it.
You don't have to sit so far.
You can go even further.
You can come on
I'm
up.
hoping that these seats will fill up.
They will.
I'm
All righty.
optimistic.
Moving on to item agenda number 2, license agreement between the City of Tulsa and Patricia G. Chernicki? Is that, I'm sorry? Okay, revocable trust dated May 3rd, 2005 for property located at 2128 East 31st Place. Lots 3 and 4, Block 4, Bren Rose Edition, to install, use, and maintain a color-stained concrete driveway within the street right-of-way. Council District 9. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good afternoon, Council. Paul Zachary, Public Works. We did get an application for these folks for the name that you pronounced. The location is shown on the exhibit maps, but this is a concrete driveway special treatment that they wanted, and it's basically, we're just putting them on notice that if any of our utilities or any of our right-of-way occupants need to cut through this, that then we repair it back to plain concrete, and they signed off and agreed on it. So they agree to that risk and agree not to make it a public expense to repair their driveway in their fancy format. So with that, we would ask that you approve this with their acknowledgement that it's theirs to maintain.
Pretty. Oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. Nice stained.
All righty, well, thank you.
All right.
All righty,
That's it.
moving on to
Oh
item
my gosh.
3 and 4, they're connected.
Wait, I feel weird talking about these ones without Christian here. It's the food truck stuff.
Thanks for your concern.
Yeah.
Is he here?
He is not here. I do know he's been briefed
Okay.
on these, and we can always schedule it back on committee for when he's
If he
back.
wants to.
But
Okay, that's
I think
helpful.
Caroline.
Sorry, you didn't
No,
even
that's
items
fine.
yet.
Yeah,
already.
That's okay.
It's just, I know that's his, like, he's been working so
That's
much
his
on
thing.
food truck policy.
Yes, that's his thing. All righty.
I'm
Item-
Caroline. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I guess I should probably read it first and then.
I jumped in, that's my bad.
All righty. Item number 3, ordinance amending Title 17 Tulsa Revised Ordinances, Health Regulations, Chapter 4, Food Code, Section 401, addendum to Food Code, City, County, specific licensing, permitting, compliance, and enforcement requirements, subsection B5, city food license fees, by adding an exemption from the city food license fee for mobile food vendors as required by House Bill number 1076, the Food Truck Freedom Act, emergency clause. And I'm going to go ahead and read item also number 4, so, because this is all related. Ordinance amending Title 21 Tulsa Revised Ordinances, licenses, Chapter 23, mobile vendors, to remove the mobile vendor license requirement and other restrictions and requirements in order to comply with House Bill number 1076, the Food Truck Freedom Act, emergency clause. All righty. Take it away.
Good afternoon. I'm Caroline Garrow-Wolf from the legal department.
And I am Eric Crump from the legal department. This is coming before you based on 2 state laws. The first one you referenced, House Bill 1076, the Food Truck Freedom Act, which is primarily the state preempting cities with respect to food trucks, what we're allowed to charge with regard to fees, what restrictions we're allowed to have, and what restrictions we're not allowed to have put on food trucks. So it's really largely the state kind of taking control and preempting cities. And then there's also a second law, House Bill 2459. It's not titled, but it has to do with the state fire marshal's jurisdiction over food trucks. So we're kind of looking at these proposed ordinances in the context of those 2 state laws. I will note they're going into effect November 1st, both of them, I think. So, kind of working to get our code up to compliance with state law. If you look at the red line version that you have, that's probably the best way to kind of see the changes.
They have it in
Oh. Oh, okay.
Send backup.
It's at the.
That's okay. I can kind of, when you do look at the red line, if you do, it looks like a lot of changes, but I can kind of boil it down to three main things, I think, to make it easier on everyone. The first thing that we had to do was our city code required its own mobile vendor license. And the Food Truck Freedom Act, we feel pretty strongly, specifically does not allow for the license as we have it. It only allows for one city license. So we currently have a food license and the mobile vendor license. Like I said, the state allows for one license. So the mobile vendor license, a lot of those changes are just because they're all related to the mobile vendor license. So you're gonna see a lot of strike-throughs just because that license is no longer allowed. And then the second change, so the first change, removing our mobile vendor license. Second change is getting rid of fees that aren't allowed. They only allow for the administrative cost of issuing the permit, so that would be our food permit. And our food permit is essentially, all we're allowed to do is recognize that the state has issued a state-issued permit, and by issuing our license, all we're really doing is acknowledging that they have a state license. So we really don't have a lot of power. We do think that we're allowed to check for sales tax compliance. We've talked to some people, so we will be also checking for sales tax compliance, but it's largely just a recognition that they have the state licensure.
And you can see that on the shorter one, the one that's in Title 17, the new language basically just exempts them from the $155 fee because we're not allowed to do that. So we'll just charge the processing fee right now is set at just $5. So they'll be charged the $5, they'll get a city food permit, but they will not be required to get the mobile vendor license, because we felt that's two different ones, and under the Food Truck Freedom Act, we're not allowed to require them to get two different licenses.
Question, the city food, is that the health department?
It is,
That was one of my
traditionally, it's kind of
questions.
related to the health
So
department.
it's another fee, because that's a fee to get your food license from the
Food handlers
health
like
department.
that.
This one in particular is just ours though, so they would just be getting the city one for
Okay,
$5.
So there are two different, okay.
Like I said, there were three kind of big changes. Like I said, you'll see a lot of red lines, but it's kind of boiling it down for everyone's simplicity. Removing the mobile vendor license, getting rid of permit fees that are not allowed, so any costs beyond administrative costs. And then the third category of changes is a little more wishy-washy. The state law allows restrictions related to public health and safety, so everyone's favorite language. We did our best to, strike through things that were restrictions we thought that weren't related to public health and safety. And so I think it's important for the council to review, and if you see something struck through that you think is related to public health and safety, please let us know, or, we can make changes.
And vice versa.
And vice
If you see
versa.
something that we kept, and this is in particular really section 2305, that's where these standards are, we're keeping those, we're deleting the mobile vendor license, but keeping these restrictions, these standards. And so we did our best to kind of go through with a fine tooth comb. There were a few that seemed clearly more about competition. And there were some that were explicitly not allowed, like the Food Truck Freedom Act said, you cannot require this. So we took those out, and we tried to just keep the ones that seemed to be about public health and safety, but if you all disagree, please let us know and we can talk to you about it.
That's not in the backup.
Or is it,
Is
just
it
in
under the
black and
next
white?
agenda?
It's
the red line.
It's under
It's not red, I guess it's not
it's
red.
item 4. It's-
Oh, it's item 4.
Because it's the
Yeah.
two.
They're
That's what-
both associated.
Is now a good time
items.
to ask some follow-up
Gotcha.
questions? Or- So I had, I think-
Are they finished?
that's what, yeah.
Okay, go
Um,
ahead. Counselor Mills.
You know me, I
Sorry.
can never wait to jump in. Okay, so I think you kind of answered my health department related question, though I did see a part about remitting some of the fee to the health department there from us. I have
So
like
we
3
won't-
questions.
We won't be doing that for just these. Because
Okay.
we'll only be collecting $5.
Wonderful. So then that leads to my kind of question, because I know we do this with other kind of license fee nature things where it's, the license itself is covering our oversight of it and offsetting that cost. Does this have, I mean, I know that there's not like epic amounts of food trucks per se, but at the same time, is this affecting any, does this have a budgetary impact that we know? I know this may not be your guys's, but you know, a lot of times that we have a license, we're like saying, hey, we made it be this much so that we could then use that to pay for actual oversight to ensure there's compliance. And like, if now we're only getting the $5 instead of like $155.
There's
oh,
the new.
new. And then I do have 2 more questions after that, but we can wait.
Would code enforcement also be involved in all that?
Potentially.
That's a budgetary
Okay, I see
thing.
code enforcement, but yeah.
Budgetary impact, I think it's about $25,000 a year.
Okay,
So that's a combination of losing the food license costs $155 right now currently. 70% of that goes to the county. We keep 30% of it. And then as Caroline mentioned, there's a $5 processing fee, which will continue. And then the mobile vendor license is $30. So
Does-
that's gonna go away completely.
okay, so then I guess my other curiosity, just to name to my colleagues, is, so it's like, not the most extreme revenue loss, but at the same time, I don't know if that was, if that was allocated to go back to the oversight, kind of how short-term rental licenses work, do we know?
So I'll
Does it say
say,
in the-
looking at the Food Truck Freedom Act,
And then I have a health department budget question then.
it says we may, sorry, this is kind
Because we
of
could
long.
obviously change other fees to offset that if we had to, but that's just if we had to.
It says we may not charge fees for any local license or permit beyond the administrative cost of issuing.
So we
the
could
local
increase the
license.
fee to.
To match,
Make
that
it
was my
break
curiosity.
even.
Well, and I'd also wonder if we're still remitting a certain percent to the health department, I don't know if that affects, like, you know, they might be counting on that for them to do the oversight part of it too. That's a question for Bruce Start, but I don't know if that's, I'm just thinking through that part.
And I think the health department is, you've had some discussions with the health department, right?
And we kind of just let them know here that because we won't be collecting really a fee, just the processing fee, that
Yeah.
there really wouldn't be anything to remit for this type of
Because
applicant.
we'd still need to do, just to better, I'm just trying to understand real quick, we still need to do a certain type of inspection of these, or is it all the health department doing that?
So.
Or you mentioned
at
fire
least
code.
fire, it'll be the state fire marshal, so it wouldn't
Okay.
be, even our health department can't do fire inspections
Right.
anymore.
Okay.
Of all this about mobile vendors. So really their inspection role is taken away too.
But the state's gonna do it for us.
That's the plan.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, I bet they're gonna come
Well,
through all the time to do that.
Probably like 7 of them cover the
Okay.
entire state.
That just sounds like there might be, I don't know if this is just like a, hey Sarah, can I just flag this as like a follow-up question? Maybe we check with the health department on if this makes it, like, I'm just curious, like, for whatever oversight is supposed to happen, whether it's from us or from the health department, if there's either a fee that has to be, I'm just trying to think of if we actually have to backfill something here to keep something happening, or I can't tell. Like, or are we now just not checking, you know, if we're not doing a certain activity anymore per state law, then maybe we don't need to do that, I'm not sure, but if it is something that the health department is used to getting from us, that helps them actually do the safety oversight, I wouldn't wanna not do that.
Undercut it.
Yeah, I don't wanna undercut that, so, especially, you know, food trucks, you wanna keep people safe. It's a kitchen,
Yeah.
so that's concerning.
I do know the state did come through actually and do an inspection a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was for these provisions specifically, but it was a state inspection of food trucks.
And Cody Banks is here too, and maybe can answer some of those questions.
Wait, before, can I ask a question before? Don't leave.
Yeah.
Stay.
Close to everyone here. And then I do want to, of course, real quick acknowledge that Christian Bagel did a lot of food truck policy work before this preemption happened, and rest in peace to his policies.
Okay,
If he was here, he would thought that was funny too.
He would.
Timing is
Yeah.
everything.
okay, go ahead.
Cody Banks, Tulsa Fire Marshal's Office, also the legislative chair for the Fire Marshal Association of Oklahoma, so I have quite a bit of fortunate, unfortunate experience with this, these couple bills. So very different bills, and as far as charging, so I'm glad you bring that up, because one bill says we can charge, the other says that we can't. And so they're really in conflict of one another. There's approximately, when we were really going against some of the legislation that was there, it was approximately 4,800, and we've learned that there's approximately 7,000 food trucks that should be inspected by the state law by November 1. So, but that is not probably going to be done.
Statewide or in Tulsa?
Yeah.
Statewide.
Okay.
So, so there's a pretty good number, obviously, here in the city as well. I believe that food truck rodeo that you spoke of earlier was about 150 inspections conducted. They did the same thing in Oklahoma City a few weeks back and got 2. So 2 people that showed up. So it's definitely a problem, and I really look from a legislative standpoint for that to change. Maybe next year, because once they realize that it's taken all jurisdiction out of the hands of the local AHJ. So now it's to the State Fire Marshal's Office to conduct all those food truck inspections.
Okay.
And then we can't, and as of November 1, when those are not, when we come upon one of those, I don't believe that that's anything from talking to our fire marshal that we're going to obviously be out looking for, but if we do come upon those at an event, unless they have a state fire marshal sticker, they will not be able to operate at that time. So, and also there's a LP gas administration that was added to that legislation as well. They are also state agents that look at the propane and gases that are in these units. And so they're also required to have an inspection from them as well.
So they have to, just as a clarifying question related to the inspection piece and getting that sticker, what do they have to do to go get, like, are they able to proactively go access that sticker?
So they're, in the legislation, House Bill 2459, the State Fire Marshal's Office is supposed to conduct, I can't remember the exact number, but in the tune of like 6 per year of what they're calling food truck rodeos, to be able to, to where they're basically going to come and inspect all those. So my understanding is they're not going to them, so,
And they can't
which I think will have a drastic effect on some of the ones that are, when you really look at the code of things, and when you say mobile, there's several that are not mobile. And so I think that that's going to probably have an effect on those as
Yeah.
well, so.
Okay.
And all this really changed is whenever the 2018 International Fire Code came into effect in 2022, is when that came into effect. So we've, again, been working towards that for the last few years, and so legislation has kind of hampered us a little bit as well. So kind of as a backstory.
Alrighty, Counselor Gilbert?
Yeah, so my questions were very similar to Counselor Bellis's, but that processing fee, the $5 processing fee, we can increase that?
Yes.
Okay, but that processing fee, just for clarification, we do not split that with the county?
That's correct.
Okay, only the licensing fee, we were splitting with them.
So it sounds like we might have to reconfigure that and then remit part of that to the health department if it turns out that's a need for them. I'm just thinking through what we may have to do. If the health department still is administering anything for this. I'm just trying to understand who's still administering.
Or is it, has the state taken total control, local control out of it, and it's now under the state
So
umbrella?
that's the
As
conundrum.
of November the 1st.
But that doesn't change the food handlers. right?
Except for the food
Vanessa
handler
had a-
permits,
Yes,
right?
different.
Well,
And I think it is
county
addressed in the,
health departments, and there are only 2.
They're different than the
Tulsa
state
and
department of
Oklahoma.
health, yeah.
They function on behalf of the state.
Okay,
So
So
that's what
Tulsa
I'm
and
saying.
Oklahoma City could be different, whereas the other the other, throughout the
But
rest
the
of
health
state.
department is
state-
still
yeah,
doing
the State
their
Department of Health.
Correct, to
inspection.
my
Yeah,
understanding.
we have
that's correct.
independent ones that are still
Well, I say
they're
we
funded
used to
through
work
the
there,
state.
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
we
Yeah, to
work
my
on
understanding, the
behalf
only
of the
thing that's
state.
really changed from that piece is what you're saying, Counselor, is the county health department will still conduct what they need to, but at the state level would only be the state fire marshal's office conducting the, basically the life safety piece there.
okay.
I would add a couple of things. One, it seems clear from that piece I read earlier that what we are charging is for the cost of issuing the permit. So I'm not
staff time
sure,
and- yeah.
and it would be us issuing the permit, so I'm not sure if that would comply to remit anything from that, because it really is like the city's time, the city administrative cost. But I will say, especially in our draft now, there are not just, there are different regulations we will still be enforcing. So in terms of code enforcement time, possibly TPD time. But I don't know if we can really reflect that in the processing fee, because that processing fee is really about the permit processing.
Interesting.
Counselor Harper?
Yeah, so the processing fee, and that was my question, I think you mentioned TPD and code enforcement, but what is that specifically for? We're just giving them a permit? What comes along with that after they receive their permit?
Really just its requirement, so.
We-
Yeah, what's
So
the
now it's-
purpose
You
of
mean,
it?
what do we do before we issue the permit?
Yeah, what's the purpose of it?
Sticker.
We
I mean, I know
check
what a
for,
food handler's permit is, right? That's to make sure that the owners have gone through certain classes to verify that they know how to not poison people. Right, that's clear. I'm asking for this, was a processing fee, what is it for?
I mean, we charged for the license, the processing fee, because we look at, obviously not, sales tax permits to make sure that they're in compliance with
Okay.
sales tax.
So it's compliance.
We also,
With sales
for mobile vendors, that's a major thing. But for all food licenses, the other things we look at is alcohol, whether they're permitted to sell alcohol, things that wouldn't be applicable in this case because it's on mobile vendors. We've also gone online now with food licenses, so the cost of doing processing it, the time it takes, all of that's,
But those things sound duplicative to what the health department does when it comes to health of food. You go to
Except for
the
the
health
tax
department to
part.
get your
the
health
tax
food
stuff,
handler.
they don't do that.
Not the tax, but,
But the rest of it, you're
and so
right.
that's what I'm asking, what that processing fee, if it's only $5 now, we're talking about potentially increasing it. My question is gonna be for what?
Yeah.
To me, it would just be whatever, that's
Because
where,
if we're duplicating the same thing the health department's doing, I don't think that's fair.
So the application comes from the health department to the business, and they come and pay it here in the city. So we process the licenses here,
Okay.
That's what we're charging $5 for.
yes.
But why do we have to be in the middle?
Yeah.
I'm guessing, it's been out for a while, I don't know, but I would guess that's because, I mean, they're probably handling everything for the they probably don't have the facility to handle that for all the county, all the businesses in the county, and the health, and sales tax check would be done here, that we would be the only ones privy
That's
to
a
that
big piece
data.
of it.
Yeah, that's.
Can I,
Yeah.
oh, sorry,
I
go
have
ahead.
one other question. So who lobbied for this change, these changes? You can go on and say
oh,
it.
I'm trying to remember who ran the bill. I'll go, it's
It-
HB what or SB what?
It
Because you know somebody and that's behind this.
Representative Hildebrand.
That's the names ain't telling me nothing.
Who was
I know
the
the organization. Who?
Hildebrand,
Hildebrand.
Oh,
What is that?
It's like a request bill.
that's the, who is it?
representative.
He's the,
He's the,
it's my
majority
understanding
leader,
he
yeah.
potentially may be putting forth some changes this year.
Or is it a different one?
I do not know the
There's two Hildebrands.
specifics of
Yeah,
those changes.
The new one.
The new what?
what, it's HB what?
I don't know what the changes are.
There's some organizations behind this. Y'all have to give me names of representatives.
Oh,
Probably the
I don't know.
the
restaurant.
Handlers Association. I don't
Well,
know, I'm just making up
The
names.
brick
Okay.
and, the brick and mortar
I figured
restaurants
you-
feel like it's unfair competition to have food trucks because they don't have the overhead.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. Sounds like this is something that
And that's
restaurants are
something that
pushing.
Counselor Beangle is
to
also
stop.
concerned about.
Mobile Okay.
I have a question about compliance. So we just heard our fire marshal say they're out of it, except for like on a confirmation basis now. So can we require that sticker to also be part of this? We're checking for sales tax, we're checking, can we add the state fire marshal sticker check to the process? So on the front end, when they're coming through the door, we're just like, check, 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 you're good.
Honestly, I don't think that they're probably going to, I think you'll probably hear from them to say, and I can't speak for them, but just making a complete assumption that they're gonna say that they're gonna do just the life safety piece and not, add in on that. I'm guessing, is that the answer you're looking for? Or-
No, I'm checking on, I'm asking on like, as we're processing their application for $5, it sounds like we check for sales tax. Is that what you just said, Benu?
Mm-hmm.
And we check for now a permit?
So the
So-
way, Counselor, we put it in the draft, but that's a good question.
I know we're discussing the draft right here, that's why I'm asking.
Where I put it in drafting this was in the other chapter, but I'm thinking off the top of my head, we probably could have it there too.
I'm
It's
just trying to
part of
figure
it.
out, like, they obviously don't want local control on this issue, but there's an amount that we could have in just checking off the list before we sign off. And so, if they haven't made it to a rodeo, it would be like, go find a rodeo, get your sticker, and then come back, and then we'll process you. That's one way to kind of, cross our Ts and dot our Is from a processing standpoint. Because you're already signing off on the sales tax piece and the permit the permit piece, I don't understand how we're still involved with, like, administrating a program that we're not really part of anymore for the health department. Sounds like they're gonna have to take that piece on, because the state legislature took the municipality out of it. And we're still incurring a $25,000 cost for the pleasure of processing their things, so.
I believe we could add that. I'll
Okay,
check
let's look into
before
that.
you all meet again. And we did add it as in that other chapter 23 as a standalone requirement to also kind of beef up.
I mean, it sounds like they're supposed to have it, but the checkpoint would be when they come to our, or go online. I don't know what the process is, but if we just add another little place where they have to confirm that they've gone through all the requirements that still exist, then we can at least have some sort of, I don't even wanna say oversight, but just like, yes, at the time that they applied with us, they were in compliance with all areas that they're supposed to be.
Yeah, let me double check that and we'll confirm with finance too.
Yeah, especially since they did take the municipality out of it. I mean, I don't want any blowback coming back to the city from any kind of processes that are overlooked by them taking charge. Counselor Bellis.
And then I think we can have his hand up next.
Yes.
I was just gonna, as a follow-up, I just was reading more like kind of local articles about this and can definitely understand, and it looks like the impetus for the bill had to do with when food trucks are trying to go to all these other municipalities, and then they have to go navigate and try to comply with all this, like, right, it describes it as, like, which is very real, a patchwork of local licenses. I totally get wanting to alleviate that, so just naming that sounds like the big impetus, totally makes sense. And obviously, we want it to be more accessible for food trucks from elsewhere to come when it's like, whether it's the fair or all sorts of other events, because obviously that creates more, it's like tourism, revenue, et cetera, tax, sales tax. My curiosity though, going back to that sales tax piece is right, we don't want to miss, especially if people are traveling through the sales tax collection. So I think my bigger overarching question is, if we're not doing X, Y, and Z, what is the cost of administering whatever we are still doing, if we need to still be doing it?
Yep.
And then just how do we make sure that we are getting enough like funds to cover that with whatever we're charging? So maybe that's a budget thing for next cycle, but
Well, I know that.
Yeah, that's my question.
Several of the food trucks are cash only as well, so that's.
I'm sure we're,
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like art vendors where people pop up and you might not actually collect anything that we should be legally.
All right, Counselor Clayton.
No, my question was the same thing. What is our actual cost of processing the application? We just need to make sure we're covering those
Yeah,
costs.
just break
It's
even.
probably not $5.
No.
No.
Yeah, staff time it can't be,
Yep.
Okay. Counselor
Especially if we're gonna have these other things on that we discussed.
Is that a projection we could get to try to update? Okay. And then we could just like work that into the policy. So I don't know if that means, would you all recommend that we like move forward on this and then come back and look at this cost a different time, or like what would be?
From the first deadline, I don't know, what we would
Yeah, we probably need
We probably have to.
move forward just to be in compliance and then amend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're really close to November 1, huh?
Well,
Okay.
this passes after November 1.
Yeah.
November 5th.
So the fire sticker, if they don't have the fire sticker, do they have to be shut down?
Per the state law, yes.
Okay.
And it's very clearly written in that, and so
There's no, like, 10-day or 10 working day window
no,
of opportunity for them to get it?
no, ma'am.
Okay.
And our hope is, I mean, obviously, to be a good partner with, working with the State Fire Marshal's Office as well. We plan to continue to do that, but hopefully we can gain some compliance by that, as sending them to them, or, and like anything, I think something new is, when I'm not saying that they won't come to them, but that's what, I think is being stated, that they will not come to them, but
Are there
I would
any
think that there's
here,
area.
are there any here locally, the state
So there's
marshal's office?
12 agents throughout the state for 77 counties.
Okay.
And so there is one here in the, kind of the, northeastern
Metropolitan area.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where exactly he is, but he's somewhere in the general vicinity, so.
Just, so these small business owners don't have to go all the way so far to Oklahoma City? To, time out of their day to get that sticker?
Yes, there's language in that bill, 2459, that talk about counties with, that exceed 400,000 population, which only obviously affects Tulsa and Oklahoma counties. That's where those food trucks are. There's a certain number that they will have each year in those particular counties, and then obviously they'll go kind of spread out from there to other entities.
Okay. So if they don't have their sticker, they can be shut down for maybe one day until they get that sticker, and then they can reopen?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that, again, I think it'll be kind of a moving target once it hits, to see how they, utilize that particular piece. And, but I can't imagine that not coming to them to do that, but that's just going off of what's been, so.
And are these stickers going to be like in plain sight so customers can see it as well?
They should be.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And also the LP gas sticker as well.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Okay, yeah.
Counselor Archie?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, certainly.
Oh, he was first, actually.
Oh, no, I'm totally fine with him going first. I just want to make sure I saw the
Yeah.
list.
You should have done more of the.
I've got you.
Thank you for
Wait.
doing this, Counselor Fowler.
I've got
Wave
you.
your arms around while.
Yeah, I was sure. Oh, wait, no. I definitely, as I'm reflecting, I appreciate the spirit of the bill. Our candy company has paid all these fees for many years, and so, but I am concerned about, like, what is the true cost of the permit, or to administer. So to concur, I'd like to know that cost. And then also, for our fire marshals, what sort of, like, communication are we gonna do to businesses to let them know that this is happening?
We have posted, our fire marshal basically posted, and I'm not real sure where that went. I can't speak to that, but put a flyer together. But we've also done this here. But he did put basically outlining everything, and there's several other local HJs around the state that have kind of done, really a similar letter, just so everybody's kind of, again, we try to be on the same page. That way you're not different somewhere else, obviously, but just outlining those requirements and what is required. So we have tried to do our due diligence in getting that message out there as well.
Okay, great.
Alrighty. I have Counselor Lakin. Yes.
He just wants to put a pin in it.
I have it written.
Okay, so it's yet to be determined on how long they're shut down? It could be one day, or it could be until the next rodeo date?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so they could be shut down for
Right.
90 days.
But do they have to wait for the rodeo to get the sticker, or can they just go and
That's
track
what he's
down a
saying.
fire marshal and say, I need a sticker?
I would, my recommendation to folks, and again, kind of as the Fire Marshals Association, let me take my Tulsa hat off and we're again trying to work with these folks, and so if there is issues, to email the State Fire Marshal, the Assistant State Fire Marshal, the State Fire Marshal Commission, and their legislator. And so that's really the only thing that we have. And again, we will try to help them, I believe, in any way we can. Our jurisdictional piece is gone. So I venture to say that once it gets going, that nobody's going to be held to waiting on a food truck rodeo, but I can't answer that to see what they will do.
I want to witness one of
So-
these
unknown.
rodeos.
Yeah.
And again, we
how
had
many
good
food
success,
trucks?
and we did help them, our office did help them, being that it was prior to the November 1st piece. We did help them back in September. Mainly, it was a lot of the fair food trucks. So our group did help them, but after, again, November 1, that's no more,
Okay.
so, but.
Thanks.
Alrighty, any further questions from the council?
Maybe we should come up with some more to keep all the housing people waiting. I'm just kidding.
Alrighty, moving on to item number 5. Discussion with the city's senior advisor on homelessness, Fudge Consulting Group, and representatives from Housing Solutions regarding goals, outcomes, and metrics for the mayor council retreat priority on homelessness, including a presentation on the Safe Move Tulsa Plan and other related recommendations.
Welcome.
Welcome
Hi.
to the table, y'all. Come on.
I moved down from Councilor Lakin because I thought you were gonna have an entourage. Thought it would be good to group everyone together.
Are you? Hi, Emily.
That's right.
Hi. Emily. Yeah, you're way down there.
I'm here. It is.
I think
She won't even sit next to me. What is wrong with me today?
Wear deodorant, stuff like
I know, I did.
This chair is closer
For
to
sure.
sweaty that I would.
What'd you say?
that. I asked if you were, I just said if you were wearing deodorant, then we're good.
Oh, yeah, no, but I admitted that I did,
Yeah.
so.
That's on the record.
Oh.
It's on the record that he did wear deodorant.
I thought there was a group of people coming. That's why
I know, me
was
too, yeah.
One person's online.
like- Okay.
Yeah. So we will, I'll introduce her in just a minute. And then Mark is here if any questions are needed specifically for Housing Solutions, so.
Come on up in.
I mean,
Come on up.
I don't want to assume, I'm happy to come on up.
See where he sits.
Oh, well, yeah, don't want to, so I thought I was going to be right here.
I was going to sit here, but now I'm worried there's something wrong with this chair.
Oh, is that the?
I've edited it.
Is it-
open up, you're gonna fall
There's
through
that
it.
chair.
Phil has a button.
Goes through there.
No one's
We
fed
have
the
mayor
gators
at
yet?
the table as well, so. Okay.
You think these are mics, but.
Right.
Mayor, do you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started then. So our conversation today is going to be providing an update on our homeless priorities that were identified during the mayor council retreat. And before we get started on that, just ground in a little terminology that we'll hear that we typically do each presentation. And just want to call your attention to two things. One, decommissioning, we've been talking about it in the sense of encampments. But this is really all folks who are unsheltered, whether it is, they are sleeping in an encampment or they are sleeping on a street. Hence the next phrase, street sleeping. This really focuses on being more inclusive so we're not just identifying individuals sleeping in encampments, but maybe someone that is sleeping in a park bench or in front of a business doorway or on the street sidewalk. So just shifting that wording just a little bit as we shift focus from not just encampments, but to anyone on the street. So just to review, the priorities that were set by the mayor and council around homelessness are three. One, preparing for extreme weather, homeless to housing, and preventing homelessness. And you guys.
Can we go back 1 second?
Oh,
try the back here. There we go.
Okay.
Can we get copies of the presentation, emails as well?
Yes, I'm sure Sarah has it.
It's a backup now.
You kept them.
It is in
Yeah,
that.
those are supposed to be turned in.
Yeah, you're not supposed to keep that.
Did you see this?
Hey, it's his first year.
I'm blessed with me. As soon as you put that, here's it, Anthony, you can have it.
I don't,
Y'all got so much really with this.
you guys.
He literally said, "Did you see this?"
Continue on, Ellen.
Got it. So you all saw this graph a couple months ago. We reviewed it earlier this summer as we are setting kind of the overall vision of functional zero homelessness by 2030, and then identifying those goals and then sub-goals on how we are working to hit functional zero. I will note that as we go through this, I'm going to start with the second goal of homeless prevention and work backwards. And as we go through this, there's been a little bit of a change with the addition of Safe Move Tulsa. When we set these priorities in January, that was not a part of it yet. So beginning with sub-goal 2.1, prevent evictions. This is going to be, so the focus of this goal is through the work of the Mayor's Coalition on Eviction Mitigation, which actually completed its second meeting today. This is going to be done through the work of the Habitability Working Group, which has been meeting on a regular basis and for an extended period of time. Furthermore, going to be looking at how we increase housing options so that, and that's work that overlaps between homeless and housing initiatives, but looking at increasing housing options so that there is a house that is affordable to everyone, and that includes individuals and families, as well as identifying needed diversion plans. So we'll be looking at rental assistance, utility assistance, and other sort of potential diversion programs. So when we talk about how do we meet this goal, what will it look like to know that we've met this goal, be assessing the return on our investments, and we'll be doing that a couple different ways. By identifying the number of evictions that were filed and served, and wanting those numbers to decrease after year 1 of this work, year 3, and year 5, so we can see a downward trend. Be able to identify eviction diversion programs and those be put into place. Really, what can be done at the local level within the city of Tulsa. Improve processes, identify early warning indicators, and this is what all of this stuff is being looked at right now through the eviction groups, and we'll have clarity on what are those early warning indicators that we will be utilizing in this return on investment. Identify supports for landlord and tenants. So then shifting over to goal 1, which is homeless to housing. We've identified that we want to increase the number of individuals on the by name list. And just a reminder, the by name list, and Mark, correct me if I get this wrong, please, but the by name list is the list of those in need of housing, those who have identified themselves as homeless and in need of housing, and this fluctuates on any given week, on any given month. But is that?
That's accurate.
Okay, thanks. Right now, there's roughly about 2,500 to 2,800 people on the by name list. And it can, once they're on the list, it can take upwards of 200 plus days to get into housing. So when we look at how are we increasing a pathway from homeless to housing and looking at the investment of this work. We want to target housing 1,000 people in year one. And we want to then look at what the housing stability percent retention is. We want to increase that by 90 to 94%. Year one, year 3, year 5, the same people are continuously staying housed. And just, there are a couple key facts right here of where we are currently. 675 people have secured housing to date from January 1st, 2025 to current. And 93% people retained permanent housing in 2024, and that percent stayed the same between 2020 and 2024. So we want to look at increasing the retention of housing as we move forward in our work.
These are people who come off the list, the 675?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So sub-goal 1.1 is clear street sleeping. Again, this is that decommissioning work across the city. And street sleeping includes our encampments, individuals on the street, maybe they're on a park bench, under a tree, in front of doorways. We are going to assess our return on investment through the number of encampments that we can decommission. Right now, our capacity is maybe 1 per month. It might be able to be increased once we launch Safe Move Tulsa, but that's our capacity right now. And that's because, again, our shelters are at 100% capacity, and then the movement across this system to get people from their current state into housing. Also going to look at the number of individuals who received housing, that they remain housed after year 1, year 3, and year 5. And when we think about how many people are not, who are homeless and not in a shelter or not in a car or any other place, but are on the street, at the January 2025 point in time count, there are 496 individuals identified as unsheltered. Sub-goal 1.2, this is increased shelter space. And this is going to be done through 2 ways. So part of the conversation that we had in January was a winter shelter, an extreme weather shelter, that's something that could be accessed both any time of the year. We will be opening a winter shelter from November through March in November through March 31st, and I'll be back in a couple weeks with more information as those details are in the process of being finalized. This summer, we were able to utilize a day location to pilot, and we talked about the extreme weather, to pilot what a summer location might be during the day to provide people with case management, food, showers, water, shade, out of the elements. And that was actually still going on through the end of October. The ability to provide transportation from the downtown bus station to those individuals in the downtown area who need a safe and cool place to be during the day, to Be Heard location. To date, we've been able to provide 2,121 riders with a bus ride 2-day service. And people have received case management every day. What we have learned from this and what we saw in the winter shelter situations in January and February is that when access is provided, people will take it. When they have access to the case management, people will utilize it. Folks who didn't have access to a safe day location that do right now are being housed, are being provided ongoing support services. Some have entered treatment centers. They are now on a pathway to stability when they didn't have that access prior.
Can I ask a quick question in regards to those numbers?
Uh-huh.
The riders, were they all from downtown?
Yes, and so that, it averaged between 30 and 50 individuals per day.
And the number is not repeat riders, like,
Duplicated?
yeah, duplicated riders?
Oh, that's, if someone gets on the bus, it could be the same person getting on the bus every day of the week. On average, it's 30 to 50 individuals per day that are getting on a bus and going.
Do you have an
Okay.
unduplicated number?
I think an unduplicated number would be really challenging, because we're not, I mean, you know, folks aren't
You're not like
necessarily scanning something as they get on. I
Oh, it's
think-
just like click, count.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
just a number, so I mean, I think what can be derived from this is just the need downtown. I know a lot of us got a lot of feedback about just the number of folks that were downtown, and one of the things we're really interested in is how much of that could you relieve with folks who were, I mean, I think the bus station was an issue, but more broadly in the downtown area, given that, you know, we have some of our shelters downtown that don't provide day service. And so what I think we found, what I think can be, as I was saying, derived from this is, there's a large share of people who've been downtown, who people have given us feedback on, who just really needed an alternative. And, you know, the 2,100 riders is certainly a duplicated number, because the
Yeah.
2,100 would far exceed the kind of number of folks who were out on the streets right now.
Right. I just, yeah, I'm kind of wondering about the breakdown on that.
What I imagine we could figure out, which is still wouldn't be like a perfect match, I imagine we could work with our partners at Creops and Housing Solutions to figure out how many individual people have been served, like there.
Yep.
That number is gonna be lower than the number of people who go out there, because not everybody who's gone out there, you know, got a service. So like, we could probably break down those unduplicated numbers. They just won't be a perfect match.
Yeah, because I think after speaking with Evan, the number, it's more than duplicate, the clients that actually did take the bus and end up at Beaver, so.
But are we giving them bus vouchers?
No, it's a bus designated
Oh, okay.
specifically,
Okay,
it
for
is
that,
a
it's not-
direct,
Yeah.
it is a direct ride,
Okay.
yeah. And they're taking pets as well, so.
And I will say, so at Be Heard, as people were entering, there wasn't a brief intake process, so we were
Yeah,
able to
so
look
they
at.
have the numbers, that's what I was trying to,
Yeah, so we're happy to provide that. I would also add that while we did have some downtown riders who were accessing day shelter services through this, there was a larger amount of assistance for people in East Tulsa. And so I think we
Right.
also saw, you know, more people who are accessing services just beyond what we're seeing from from the riders as well. So I'd be happy to bring some follow-up data on, you know, how many people were accessing Be Heard services on a daily basis, and like totally unique individuals we should be able to provide.
Where do they go after they went to Be Heard?
The folks that took I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
The folks that took the shuttle there took the shuttle back.
Downtown?
Back downtown. Many of them were staying in night shelters.
Okay.
And so, or getting on another bus to go somewhere else, but they really needed a location to be during the daytime hours.
I would take that to be mostly the Salvation Army, because they shoo everybody out during the day and then they come back at a certain hour. to go with-
The nighttime shelters are Salvation Army and John 3:16.
Right, okay. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I had one question concerning the by name list. You said approximately 2,800 people are on that is the list of those in need of housing. So they're homeless?
So yes.
Okay.
And the point in time count.
Right, I'm trying to figure out,
Right,
the
so
discrepancy
it doesn't, yeah. Folks on the by name list may be folks who are couch surfing, maybe folks who are sleeping in a car, maybe folks who are sleeping in a hotel for a temporary place to shelter. So it is more, is broader catchment than the point in time count.
Okay.
I just got a text from Andy, she does
Okay,
have the
Okay,
do you want to go ahead?
yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
So,
Okay.
so just real quick, sounds like you said she's,
She has to leave
She's
it.
a hard stop.
so what we might do, Emily, if you wanna
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
pop through these next ones, then we'll jump to Mandy. And then
That's
that way,
great.
if we have some questions after that, cause she has a hard stop at 4, sounds
Yeah,
like.
we
the
are
person we have online.
almost through.
Yeah, cause you only have a couple left.
Okay, and then hit on our next goal of housing individuals and families. And this is really Safe Move Tulsa. So this goal, right now, we want to focus on housing 1,000 people per year. And really with this goal, we're looking at that inflow and exit of homelessness. Right now, it's off. More people are coming into homelessness than are exiting, and we want to right-size that through this goal. So there's a couple facts. It's reversing the trend right now. And then we'll move on, but our priorities are a stepping block of what has been laid, the foundation's really been laid with Path to Home and through 3H Task Force. And now with the prioritization of Safe Move Tulsa, that's one more stepping block to get to functional zero homelessness. But we will turn it over to Mandy Chapman-Simple with Clutch Consulting, who will go into detail about scaling the work to capacity. And Mandy is with Clutch Consulting Group, she's a nationally recognized homeless systems expert. She served as Houston's first special assistant to the mayor for homeless initiatives and works with cities doing this work that Tulsa is doing. She's worked with Dallas, Oklahoma City, Indianapolis. And Mandy, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us.
She's in the waiting room.
You know, have we been muted this whole time?
She's in the waiting room, it looks like.
Oh, she couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, it shows that she needs to be accepted into the.
She hasn't heard anything, unless she's watching it at home.
Well, as we were saying,
Hi, Mandy.
She's muted, I think.
Yeah.
the buildup is crazy, man.
Yeah.
Mandy, you must unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, Mandy. Thank you for joining us.
I think we have to tell her it's time. Well, she didn't hear the
Is she able
introduction.
to?
Yeah, I was gonna,
Right.
Can she unmute herself?
She's getting her audio.
Mandy, as you do your audio, you'll be happy to know
There she
that
is.
Emily's already introduced you. She told us about the 3 gold medals in the '96 Olympics. Congratulations on that. Just kidding. Just kidding.
She said
Joke.
what? We can't hear her.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good, I can hear you. I think I'm sharing slides here for all of you, is that right? 'Cause I can't,
Not
if you're looking
yet.
at slides, I can't see them.
We can't. Oh, you
We're
wanna-
not looking at them
Oh, wait,
anymore.
do we need to share the slides on our end from our Zoom?
She needs to share the slides from her side.
Can you share
I can
them?
share.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure. But
Thank you.
just in case this one. Okay, can you all see that?
Yeah.
This is your slides. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you today. I am in an airport, so I apologize for that. But I'm glad this worked out. My name is Mandy Chapman-Simple. I am managing partner at Clutch Consulting. Clutch Consulting is we like to call ourselves a small but mighty consulting firm that was formed in Houston in 2018 after coming out of just an incredible opportunity to completely transform the homelessness response system in Houston, seeing just incredible results. So my business partner Heather and I, both of whom worked in that Houston system, I in the mayor's office as the first special assistant for homeless initiatives, and Heather in the field as a lead implementer and innovator, we came together and felt like we had really discovered a formula and believed that there was opportunity to go and share that with other communities and continue to innovate and experiment and really push the boundaries of how we meet the moment in communities across the country. So in doing that, we've really worked hard to try to bring those innovative practices and to replicate results and continue to react to the shifting conditions across the country. We really see ourselves as strategic implementers who meet the moment. So we work at every level of this process in support of communities. So all the way from the halls of City Hall into boardrooms, all the way down through our incredible service providers and to the streets where our individuals experiencing homelessness unfortunately are living, and all the way to those encampments, deep in the woods, under the overpasses, on our city streets. And our job is really to help bridge between that leadership vision and the field implementation so we can help communities work differently and get real results on street homelessness. So today I want to talk a little bit about what the pledge process is in itself and what's being applied in Tulsa, how we got here, and then some of the work that's already underway in partnership with the city and Housing Solutions, and just the entire community. So first and foremost, we were invited by the private sector, really based on all of that national expertise and our experience in the field. And that's pretty common, although we work in partnership with municipalities, with Continuum of Cares. But it's great to be invited into a community. And one of the very first things we do, regardless of who invites us, is really begin to connect with local leaders. Having been invited by the private sector, it meant we first and foremost wanted to connect with the Continuum of Care agency, which is Housing Solutions, and of course the mayor's senior advisor on homelessness, given that the mayor and the council have made such an incredible commitment toward this particular issue. So we made those connections, offered our support. It really seemed to be an opportunity where a community was really interested in coming together to do something dynamic and with urgency, and that really fits our style. So the general kind of steps that we plan to follow in this process, or are following in this process, I think are 6 broad steps. So the first is that we always want to come in and begin by looking at the data, looking at all of the elements of the homeless response system as it exists, and prepare a system model so that we can identify all of the gaps in the system. But those gaps would be, both all in the design of the system itself, in the performance, and also in the funding or resource gaps. With that understanding in mind, knowing that this system mapping isn't just about what exists today, but we're looking at where do we want to land as a community and what's it going to take to get there. That positions us to work in concert to design a ramp-up plan. So in this particular case, the goal was set to achieve a functional end to homelessness by 2030. So the question is, how do we really accomplish that? So that ramp-up plan then is really about how do we quickly address the gaps, reorganize service delivery, and secure funding. Step 3 then is working to galvanize public and private partnerships that really position the community to accelerate implementation of that strategy, and also avoid distractions, which you can understand would be are easily found when we're trying to move an entire community, a large network of providers, a large network of stakeholders, toward a common goal. So in order to help do that, we don't want to just talk about the plan, we want to get to ground as quickly as possible. So the 4th step is how do we go to ground and begin testing these strategies, working in partnership with the service providers, with the lead agency, building new delivery capacities, and really establishing proof points that help everyone remain organized so that they're seeing and feeling the results right away. The fifth step is that we obviously need to secure both immediate funding and long-term funding so that we can both reorganize and scale the system, but ultimately sustain this newly revamped system. I think one of the misconceptions about homelessness is that this is a static problem, and the truth is it's a dynamic problem, and that's really what the system modeling reveals to us, and it's how we can now, in a very data-driven way, articulate what it's going to take both to ramp our system up to the scale that it needs to meet that annual demand, but also how to sustain it so that we never find ourselves in the same situation again where we're seeing homelessness spill out onto our streets. And obviously the sixth step then is to do the work, get in and fully scale that system and reach the particular milestones we're interested in. First and foremost, eliminating street sleeping and preventing it from returning, but also just maintaining that effective and sustaining that system. So I want to share with you the results of, some of those first few steps that have taken place. So the first being the system modeling. What we were able to discover and what's really important is what's the full scale that we need, or what's the full demand that we need to scale to. So what we discovered is that on an annual basis, there are about 3,100 adult individuals who enter homelessness annually in Tulsa. And that interestingly, about 74% are actually experiencing homelessness for the first time. And most of them can be served with low-cost, one-time interventions that help them springboard back to housing. Unfortunately, because those interventions aren't readily available, many of those individuals end up spending an average of 64 days in shelter. They leave without a remedy, and you end up having higher than average rates of return to homelessness, where they try again and end up kind of in the same cycle. So this represents an opportunity to intervene and prevent that cycle from happening, but also then dramatically reduce the number of individuals that are experiencing homelessness at any given time in our community. What we also know is that without early supports, there are persistent 500 individuals that end up stuck in homelessness for more than a year, waiting on these limited deep interventions. And so it's really these system design flaws that are causing the shelter beds to fill and overflow. It's resulting in encampments, inappropriate use of public spaces, and migration by individuals across the city in search of a variety of supports. So the ramp-up plan is really designed to provide a framework for how to respond to that. Simply put, this modeling exercise articulates that we need to reorganize and amplify homeless services to quickly and effectively serve everyone. And the way to do that is to position resources for about 80% of the individuals who are going to enter on an annual basis are either first-time homeless or are experiencing a new episode of homelessness. And that we can focus on an immediate intervention and a rapid resolution instead of putting them in shelter to wait for days, weeks, months, which is clogging up our shelter system. Obviously, incredibly healthy for those individuals as well to springboard back into housing, avoid the trauma of homelessness, but also maintain continuity of the supports in their life, of employment, of all of those other networks. The second strategy is there are existing long stayers or individuals who have been experiencing homelessness for more than a year, and there are individuals that will enter homelessness annually that will have deeper needs and be at risk of staying long-term if we don't intervene early with a deeper and urgent intervention. And so because we know that the percentage of that population is relatively small as compared to the total inflow, we can plan for that and position these resources to both target the long stayers that exist today, but also anticipate that these individuals, some of these individuals who enter homelessness in the subsequent years will also need deeper interventions. And so we can identify how to connect those individuals. Included within that is this isolated need for some individuals who have very high needs in complex cases to go through some deeper institutional care or treatment before perhaps they return to the homelessness rehousing system for appropriate long-term care environments. And so the creation of a complex case team that includes a partnership between the mental health system, hospitals, and law enforcement, as well as the homeless response system, is going to be a key feature here in responding to those very unique and isolated complex cases, but nonetheless the cases that tend to dominate our day-to-day. So without boring you with charts and all of the data, I wanted to highlight, though, that the system modeling provides us with hard data about both what our gaps are, so how many early interventions exist and what are our gaps, how many of those interventions are needed one time versus on an annual basis. And the same is true of deeper interventions. And within our modeling, this gets stratified even more specifically into all sorts of different existing components within the system. So it in essence provides a roadmap for how we need to scale our system in order to respond to the needs as I've described. Within the modeling exercise, we're also able to attach associated costs for each of those activities, and that helps us generate an understanding of the additional funding that's required to scale and sustain an effective homelessness response system. We then apply that within the context of how quickly can we ramp up, both in our ability to unlock resources, but also in building the actual, human capacity and getting that capacity positioned and the infrastructure positioned to deliver the way we just described. And so as you can see from the chart here, we've reflected that we need about $10 million in year 1, and then we'll begin to ramp up in year 2 and year 3 to the sustainable number of about $30 million. So from those exercises, we were able to work with the city and with Housing Solutions to really create a much more comprehensive view of Safe Move Tulsa and articulate a 3-year plan to accomplish an end to street sleeping in Tulsa and position the city to reach that effective end by the 2030 mark. So what you can see in this slide here is that we've broken this down into 3 phases, more or less to correlate to that 3-year timeline that I articulated. So in that first phase, it's really going to be focused on eliminating and preventing street sleeping by rehousing and supporting 300 individuals who are living unsheltered, but also beginning to work within the Archer corridor to respond to individuals who are experiencing homelessness for the first time, who are new to homelessness, and to intervene early, beginning to build that capacity. And our aim is to serve our first 1,000 individuals who are new to homelessness with a very quick exit from shelter and return to housing. Embedded within that is cooperative work with first responders, public space managers, private property owners, and of course the complex case team as I've described, in order to both respond to the existing street sleeping, but also to prevent it ongoing. So as we are engaging with individuals and helping them leave the streets, right, on a pathway to recovery and wellness, we then want to prevent the next individual from filling their spot on the street. And that is through those partnerships and with the activation of these rapid resolution strategies so that you can go within the Archer corridor or to a subsequent service provider and receive a more immediate intervention and not just be put on a list of things. So as we move into phase 2, this is really now about scaling an effective kind of shelter flow or flow through your system in its totality, which means how do we now begin to respond to everyone who's experiencing homelessness with those rapid resolutions? How do we clear out the individuals who have been sitting in our homeless response system for a long time by delivering those deeper interventions, by responding to those complex cases in a really targeted way? And it's through the scaling of this effective flow that really positions us to maintain or ultimately prevent that ongoing street sleeping. And then the final phase is that we have to secure some sustainable revenue in order to sustain this new homelessness response system. We know that there are going to be some shifting resources at the federal level, and what's exciting about this plan is that it allows us to then layer in those remaining federal resources for whatever eligible services, and it ensures that there is local funding that sustains this system, that can continue to deliver day to day, and can continue to leverage the state, federal, and any other private resources that become available to amplify or to continue to innovate or respond to new needs as they arise. So the ultimate goal for Clutch here, as a result of this process, is to really embrace the Safe Move Tulsa initiative and bring it into a context of a public-private partnership to end and prevent street homelessness in Tulsa. Really realizing the vision of the mayor and of you as council to move your community quickly, but recognizing that it will take more than the city to get that done. It will take the entire community. I often say it takes a village. And so it's so exciting to be positioned in this moment in support of a community that's really ready to embrace that. And so with that, I will open myself up to any questions about who we are as Clutch, the process, or the plan based on the work that we've done today.
Alrighty, we have a question from, do you have a question for her?
I do.
Okay, from Councilor Dr. Wright.
Hi, Ms. Chapman Simple. Thank you for the presentation. I'm Lori Dr. Wright. I'm one of the 4 counselors that served on the 3H task force previous to this administration, and have been very focused on eviction avoidance. I have the highest rate of eviction, or I did have the highest rate of eviction in the city. So I just have some questions. The numbers that you had on slide 7, are those predicated on current dollars or bringing in new dollars? The 10 million, the 20 and the 30, is that based on what we've already done with our $75 million allocation? And this is additive, we need 10 more on top of that, or is that including what we've already allocated?
So I'm not quite certain with the $75 million allocation, but I think what you're referencing is all of the existing investments that are made within your community. Am I following?
Yeah, are you saying we need to add 10 on top of it for year 1 and then 20 and then 30 on top?
Counselor, are you talking about the 75 million housing dollars?
Well, I'm just talking about CDBG, all the dollars we've identified to date to help solve this problem. Is this a $10 million on top of that or inclusive of?
So the $10 million, so I'll speak to the 10.
Okay.
The $10 million is the safe move money that you all approved, so that is inclusive of dollars that have been incorporated. And then some gap filling dollars on the back end that I think the goal was to raise it for the private sector, if I'm not mistaken, it's another $4 million.
So it's the 4 plus 10 more?
No,
It is-
it's 4 plus 6 is 10.
To
Yeah,
get
so
to
you
10,
guys did
that's what I'm
6.
asking, like-
You did 6, then
Yeah.
you're going to raise them 4. And
Well,
I
it's just-
think
yeah.
the go forward would be on top of investments that have been made to this point. So yes, so you can see before April or whatever, that would have been a clean $10 million for this year.
But we've already put 6 in.
But we've already put 6 in,
But for the others, we're at 0,
correct?
20, 30.
As it relates to this strategy and
Okay.
these things.
I was
how
just
those dollars-
confused.
Yes, absolutely.
Because this is additional funding, so.
Yep.
And then on these other projections of who we can serve and how fast and all of that, is that based on just the current needs, or is there any contingent, and this isn't necessarily for you, I'm looking at the table. Is it built on maybe contingencies given like what we see coming down in front of us as, like we know SNAP benefits are, like
Yeah.
families that can't feed themselves probably soon can't pay rent, you know what I'm saying? So there's a cascade of events that we're looking at, there's a lot of unknown, and is the number served for years 2, 3, 4, 5, based on any kind of contingent swing either way?
So I can talk to a little bit, and Mandy can add to this, because the analysis of the, what the resource would be needed was based on inflow data in terms of people falling into homelessness in Tulsa directly. Current. But looking back over the past 3 years. And so there has been some fluctuations as we're getting to the end of the pandemic. We're seeing some economic recovery and our current uncertainty. I think some part is like we can't fully predict the future and it's hard to know. But looking at a 3-year average, I mean, between the end of 2024 and where we were at in 2022, we've seen significant changes in economic conditions in our community. And so that's where we found that 2,100 individuals entering into homelessness every year, I think is a reasonable expectation based on the last 3 years. But, you're very right, like the conditions in the next 2 to 3 years of what happens with federal benefits, that could change tomorrow if the government decides to reopen. So that's a part that's a little hard to predict, and we really focused on this period of the last 3
That
years.
you did use kind of like an average of extreme high, maybe extreme low, and find something in the middle.
And I think that last 3-year period of looking at 22, 23, 24 is a good, it's not too large of a range that's looking back to like, 2020 and 2021 are kind of unicorn years. But it's a close enough range which shows enough variability in terms of some of the factors that would lead to rising homelessness, certainly in sort of economic and social service environments. 2022, we had higher emergency rental assistance, we still had some COVID era dollars. 23 and 24, those were really ending, but the economy and workforce was getting into a better place. I think that gives us a better idea moving forward.
The third question around these projected numbers, is it also based on like current housing stock or where we think we're going potentially? Like how are we factoring that in?
So I would certainly say for year 1 and year 2, as we look at current housing stock, that is looking at, what we can see in the market and the inventory right there as well.
Okay.
Beyond that, some of this, if we're gonna help enough people re-enter into housing, what inventory is there, what new units will be online, what units may come offline. We can't guarantee or look at that. I think this also, part of this is looking at, right now, just as of this past quarter, vacancies in the Tulsa market are at about 10%, which is higher than it's been in many years. We have an opportunity to access the housing market in Tulsa that just hasn't been here for several years. Part of this approach and model that we're looking at, really working with Clutch, is that we can't wait to develop more housing, especially permanent supportive housing, to address this issue. So how can we bring resources that allows us to access units on the market right now, while the important work of some people sitting right behind me to bring more new units to the market, especially those that are affordable and come with resources, we have the time to do so as well.
But those aren't factored in this projection. So this is just really based on what we have now.
What we have right now.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, Counselor Lakin?
Hey, thank you for being with us today. Sorry you're at an airport. I'm sure it's really easy to hear us and not get distracted by everything happening around you, none of which we can see, which is great. What gaps did you identify right when you came in? So you've worked in a variety of markets. When you came into Tulsa, what did you see instantly that was different than other cities and municipalities? Good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, the homelessness response systems have, in large part, looked pretty similar across the country because the federal resources have been directing, and guiding a lot of those, the emphasis on, particular activities. And so, what is unique in every community is there are unique design elements of that, really oftentimes tied to how your shelters are positioned within your community, how they function, how they're funded, how they're operated. Some of the biggest distinctions are, whether your shelters are what we would call residential, so they operate 24 hours a day, or whether they are only overnight shelters, because that creates different patterns of behavior on the street. So what we recognized in Tulsa is that you largely have shelters that only operate at night, which means you're going to be, pushing people out onto the street. So your daytime activities become complicated, as opposed to like your nighttime activities are actually relatively small as compared to your daytime activities. That's exacerbated by the Archer corridor and the co-location or concentration of services. That's exacerbated today because what happens in the Archer corridor is you're waiting. You come, you're waiting. You're waiting either all day to get back into the shelter at night, or you're waiting for many days, 200 some days, before potentially an intervention is going to become available to you. And so as much as that concentration and that waiting, creates a bit of a nuisance within your community, it also represents a tremendous opportunity because you have a co-location of services that operate both day and night that then can be activated to drive a different behavior if we just resource them and change those operations. And so that's really what I saw. I saw, both your pain points, but I saw also those opportunities. Upon kind of deeper investigation, we also found that, there's a history here that supports all of the elements of rehousing, but those elements have been dispersed across a number of providers. And what we want to introduce, and I think what Housing Solutions has been cultivating as a lead agency for the last 5 years, is the ability to centralize some of those services so that we can activate our providers to kind of scale what they're uniquely positioned to do, and we can begin to function more like a rehousing or a remedy machine, right, rather than a set of disparate organizations that are each operating their own distinct programming with some collaboration or some common systems. So again, not uncommon, and also an incredible number of opportunities, all the right ingredients, just we need to change the recipe a little bit.
Okay, that's really helpful. I know you've got a 4 o'clock hard stop. Real quick on the funding gaps, how is that typically shared across philanthropy, local, state, and federal resources? Does the local government typically take care of all of that, or what's the breakout?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, historically, we've really relied on the federal government to provide the base of funding, and we've, expected incremental annual growth in those federal funds. I will tell you, I think the federal funding landscape is changing dramatically. Nonetheless, the local problem is still the local problem, and so communities were always needing to add local resources on top of those federal dollars if they wanted to move faster than the incremental growth that those federal dollars were offering. So the way communities have historically done that in these moments, I think, is reflective here. It is asking for the public sector and the private sector to come together and to infuse resources to drive an acceleration. But the most important piece here is really identifying what is the way in which we're going to sustain this system. It's not uncommon to think that we can rely on the private sector for a very small amount of continued catalytic funding or innovation funding to help make us nimble, but oftentimes it really does fall on the public sector to find the sustainable resources. Typically we're looking at some type of sustainable tax revenue that's positioned to service the system and to maintain.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Any further questions for her? No?
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you in person one day. Thank you.
Thank you. Us too.
So I do have some questions, and I'll try to keep it short. I have lots of questions actually, but I'll just send out an email with questions. We're talking about the numbers of the unsheltered, unhoused, the homeless annually, so forth and so on. I can appreciate this plan. It looks great. Without identified resources and manpower hours to deal with this, we're talking about the issue itself, but we're not talking about all the resources that we're going to need to come together and the manpower hours that are required. I know in the past, for me, intervening with unhoused individuals, it can take hours sometimes to get somebody to respond, as it is right now. And I find that kind of a slog in the pipe, in that we have these numbers, but we don't have identified resources to tend to these numbers at all. And I'm also concerned about the lack of conversation for housing women. We have John 3:16, which is all male. We have the Salvation Army, which I believe is 70-30. And of course, the day center has both male and female, but they're all over capacity. And we're still not talking about that issue with women and all of the issues that come with it, including children being taken away because of their situation, inability to provide.
Yeah, so I can add to that. So I think one of the things, you know, talking about available shelter beds for women and for children especially, or people who have a physical disability because of some of the limits. I think Mandy talked about like some of like, our system isn't designed for the current problem. That's not like an intentional issue. You just mentioned like certain beds are available for certain people, certain needs can't be met, and it is like our system, especially our shelter system, just where our situation is in terms of the number of people becoming homeless, like how these facilities were designed many years ago wasn't meant to equip to house 1,400 people on a given night. Part of this plan is that, you're right, there's not enough beds for families, there are not enough beds for women in our community. So how can we create more beds by helping people exit shelter very quickly? And I think that's one of the things that we found through this analysis, that on average, people who fall into homelessness, who are experiencing it for the first time, many people who are using shelter, spend 2 months in one of our shelter beds, and then most oftentimes are exiting without formal assistance. So they are essentially falling into crisis, losing their housing, and they're using our shelters as a safe place to stay, and are getting back on their feet many times, you know, with whatever resources they can gather themselves. But there's a high rate of people who are returning, so they're not exiting with stability. And 2 months is a very long time. So it means that those beds who could be made available to another person are occupied. And so if we can help those folks who are newly homeless, who are staying in shelter, quickly get back in housing, to have a more safe environment, especially for women and children and families, a more appropriate environment for them, then someone else can use the bed, especially somebody who's currently unsheltered. So part of this is how can we really help accelerate. You know, our average, we talked about this a lot, is that if somebody is on the by name list, they'll be on that list for 220 days before housing assistance has become available. And that's where you have people waiting. How can we accelerate people out of homelessness and housing very quickly? And that allows us to serve, you know, some of the more intensive needs. And I know we have a lot of service providers here in the community. That has been a consistent concern, is not just long-term homeless, chronic homeless, mental illness, but people who are falling into homelessness, and there's a lack of dedicated resources to really help those folks exit quickly. And that's what this plan really brings to the table, is both for the folks who have experienced that crisis and are becoming homeless for the first time, quickly being able to resolve that. There is a better situation than living in the street or living in our shelter, and then focusing our efforts on encampments and long-term stayers who really do need that intensive time and support to be able to find a better situation.
And I would also just add, sorry, Counselor, that, you know, to the point that was brought up, I mean, the council has appropriated dollars to get us to where we need to be this year. I think this is gonna be part of the conversation that we're gonna have to have about resources moving forward. And so, like, to your point, you're right, you know, we're thinking beyond the initial investment that we've made in Safe Move, like it is gonna require a conversation about how do you get the resources to do what's necessary. And I think Mandy's point was really a really important one. And Mark, you correct me, you know, Houston, where a lot of, you know, strategy at least was derived in test cases and everything. I mean, how much in the way of federal resources were flowing to Houston as they got started? I mean,
there was a significant amount. It was a larger community. This was also 15 years ago when some of the changes in federal funding were happening, and Houston was one of the first communities to really lean into that. But, and you know, to not let a crisis, you know, and the opportunity of it go waste, Houston has also had inflows of federal funding, typically after natural disasters, that were used to accelerate rehousing pretty significantly. And so that has been a big portion of, you know, federal funds have been the key driver in Houston, and Houston is dealing with the similar challenge that we are, that local dollars are gonna have to step forward to meet that need.
Yeah, I can appreciate all that. I mean, we have hard numbers for the unsheltered population, but I haven't heard any discussion about the cost it's going to take to have enough people to be able to implement this entire strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's shared. I mean, those are the numbers she shared. I mean, the resource need
that would be in
that
the
has been
30 million.
lifted up,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been lifted up, is, what it takes from a service provider and from an outcomes perspective to actually have the capacity
Right.
that's necessary. So that is what those numbers are reflecting.
Okay, and that was gonna be my next
Yes,
question,
ma'am.
was that
Sorry,
included?
I misunderstood
That's
you
okay,
earlier.
no, that's what I was really wanting to know, if that was also included in the allocation of funds, so.
Yeah, so that's been modeling for the staffing that would be needed to deliver these types of services, as well as some of the cost on, if it's move-in assistance, rental assistance, some of the cost of, getting a person back on their feet and IDs. So that's all based on models of current programming and what we see as a cost, but also looking at, we oftentimes see many service providers, case managers have caseloads that are just unsustainable. And how do we set a model where people can receive the services they need in an effective manner and balance it? And so that's what these numbers are based on.
Is eviction avoidance in here too?
Unfortunately, no. So this is specific to people who have fallen into homelessness or are currently experiencing homelessness.
So these dollars are just for Safe Move?
It's, specifically for reducing unsheltered homelessness and people who have fallen into homelessness. So this is not in the prevention space. This is currently the individuals who are currently in our shelters or on our streets are those folks who will fall in and seek assistance, at our shelters or would be sleeping.
So chronically homeless and newly homeless, okay. So Safe Move is really for the people that we can move quickly. This is to zoom out a little bit, but still focused in, they're already there, not any upstream. So we need to contemplate other dollars for the eviction task
So,
force
I
type
will,
work we're
yeah,
doing.
and I will say, I'm sorry, and I do believe, once we get in the middle of this, we have a lot of decisions to make as far as the resource side of this. But Counselor, you asked, I think, a really good question earlier, to what extent does this include money that might already be floating around there that we know does not meet this specific need? Those resources obviously haven't gotten there, but I do think there's the opportunity to think about what are the other resources being spent. Additionally, as we get into the spend down on the housing dollars, right, where we're helping create the additional stock, I think those things begin to help address some of those other issues. I think what we really have to lean in on here is the thing that we don't really have a answer and solution for. And I think for me, you're absolutely right, but I do think I think the kind of ancillary resources on the outside of that, those are things that I feel really confident in our ability to be able to secure and to grade. There just isn't anything as we think about the chunk that this is gonna take though.
Alrighty, so Counselor Archie?
Okay, so year one, 10 million,
Okay.
20 million, 30 million. I'm interested in year 6, 7, and 8. What is the spending trend after? After you make these very large, critical investments, best case scenario, they are effective. What is the ongoing maintenance for these programs? Is it less or does it sort of maintain? What's the thought process?
Yeah, so I think the 30 million is a sustainable amount of revenue that's expected based upon, there's only so far out that we can predict, but we are seeing a consistent trend of 2,100 people lack a place to sleep and seek shelter, or sleeping in their vehicles or on the streets every year. And so, unless something significantly changed, and that could be possible by year 6, that we're gonna need to have continued resources. And some of the deeper interventions here, as we get to year 3, 4, and 6, you'll see that there's a little bit here. The green is where we need one-time additional need, because we are so far behind that we need some one-time resources to start to accelerate and house more people. And then the gray section here is where that needs to be new inventory, new capacity. We have some capacity currently on the deeper interventions with some of our permanent supportive housing stock, But what we oftentimes see in our system is that there are individuals who become newly homeless that we can tell pretty clearly, like they are not somebody who we're gonna be able to springboard back into housing and they're gonna be successful. Oftentimes with individuals with physical disabilities or really struggling with mental health conditions, just an individual from a need for support and a cost of living, seniors as well, are gonna need longer term interventions and supports. So part of this is, while we'll be, over the first several years, able to exit people who are currently in highest need, experiencing homelessness, that in the future, if one of those individuals fall into homelessness, we don't get into this situation where they have to wait 1 to 2 to 3 years, where they're already, like, anytime pre-existing circumstances or challenges have become exacerbated, that we have capacity to identify, like, you have a physical disability, you know, your opportunities for income are severely limited long-term, and we need to have capacity to provide long-term support for that person to be provided at the front end, as opposed to many people who wait years for assistance currently.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Gilbert?
So when will Safe Move Tulsa launch, and when can we see the initial outcomes of it?
Great question. We will be announcing the official launch of it first part of November. The contracts were just finalized, so that is in the process to being launched over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, can we get quarterly reports?
Yeah, I think that's what we had talked about last time.
Okay,
Were either every 3 months or quarterly reports.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think every 3 months would be helpful, just so that we can see how it's launching, or the impact of it all.
Okay, Counselor Dr. White?
Yeah, thanks for this. So this helps me understand that the dollars we're talking about here are really about, you called it street sleeping, that's a new term for today that I heard. I'm a little cautious about statements like, and by this date, we won't have homelessness, because we will. And it's not just gonna be $30 million. It's gonna be $30 million for this part. And so if we're talking about these other things, I am concerned, because if we're trying to connect people to resources such as rehab or long-term mental health supports, we don't have control over what other governmental entities are funding or not funding. And so I just want to ground us in the reality of, like, it's going to take a heavy investment. We will do the things that we can do, but I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And I'm very cautious of kind of saying, like, to Counselor Archie's point, like, after 5 years, you know, we'll see a natural attrition, or it's going to sustain, or it might go up, because we don't know. You know, if a state hospital opens, great, then there might be like a faster way if more rehabs open, but I don't think that's our reality right now when we see like the revenue failures or just the funding levels that are happening at the state and federal level. So we're very downstream, and we catch people and interact with them because they're our neighbors, and so we have to do something. But I would love to see like an overall price tag at some point.
Yeah.
So that we're not compartmentalizing all these things. I don't think we can have a conversation about stemming homelessness in our community if we're not talking about rental assistance and eviction avoidance and the cost of those things, because they are going to exist. The other thing is, yes, as we build more units, the idea is you'll have more competition and maybe free up some of the market, but the cost of rent is going up, the cost of everything's going up. So I don't think the housing study we looked at in 2019, we were talking about $750 rent price. I don't think we have that right now, and we're not going back to it no matter how many units we stick in Tulsa. So looks like Councilor Lakin would like to debate that point with me. But
the supply and demand thing, I don't know what the demand's.
I mean, 1-bedrooms go for about $1,200. You might find some that don't, but $1,100 to $1,200 is for a 1-bedroom. So, you know, I have been committed to doing this work for a long time. We weren't having these conversations at these tables, and so I'm very grateful that we're actually to a point where we're like looking to make commitments, and that it's grounded in what other cities have done. We know that Houston made a huge investment and moved the needle in a huge way, and other cities closer to our size. So I just want to make sure, I feel like people get whiplash, right? It's going to cost this much, and then 3 months later, we're talking about like a different part of the strategy, and there's another chunk of money we're talking about. So at some point, can we get like an overall, like the umbrella of doing this work that hits all of the different facets is going to cost about this much money in the next 5 years, and then, you know, where it goes, maybe the next 5 years after that.
Citywide investment.
Yeah, city, like from our side of it.
Yeah, I think that's doable, and I think some of these things kind of happen kind of concurrently, and maybe a little bit parallel, where the conversations don't maybe intersect as cleanly as they should. But as I think about this very specific issue, and I think maybe sometimes it's easier in my head to break them apart, because I'm thinking about like, what is that we want to accomplish with this level of resource for this population of people? And Mark mentioned the 220 some odd days versus what Emily showed as a goal of like 45 days or less, right? So like, do these resources, along with the other housing money, so we know we're spending $75 million on housing, we have these resources that we're working through. Does this 30 million, or whatever the case, 10 million this year, 20 million this year, does that end up being a difference maker in getting us where we can serve folks where 200 days is no longer the reality, and how close do we get to 45 days? On those check-ins for the 1, 3, and 5 years, you know, have we shrank the number of people who have fallen back into it? And I think for each pot of money, I think sometimes it's like, oh, you know, the $100 million, I'm using $100 million as, you know, as an example, is gonna solve it. Even the $100 million may not solve everything, but if how I'm gonna think about holding, you know, our team accountable is, with this resource that we spend, how far down do we cut down that 220 days? How close to 45 days is it? How few people are falling back into homelessness as we're doing the 1, 3, and 5 check? Are we slowing down the inflow of homelessness? And I think for me, that's what I'm thinking about, and where I want us to zero in on this pot. And then as we think about eviction mitigation, you know, or eviction prevention, the resources that are spent on that, how do we hold those resources also separately very much accountable? So like, I think there is some utility into looking into some of these resources in somewhat of a vacuum. You know, and so like I hope as we have like maybe this conversation and maybe have the other conversation separate, we know they're very similar and they're all maybe toward similar goals, but the resources that we would expend here, they also have to be highly accountable on, you know, driving those numbers where we at least know the system's working. Even if we have an inflow of people, the goal is that we can serve people as quickly as they're falling into it. And I think that's how it challenges to think about these resources, if that's fair.
So there's
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
Counselor Lakin.
Yeah, I wasn't debating you on the,
I just saw your face like, well,
oh, no, I
Maybe
just
it'll go
was
down.
thinking in my head, I don't know what the supply and demand will be in the future, so I hope it goes down, but I don't disagree with you necessarily at all, so I just wanted to clear.
oh, sure.
Okay, so you said that $30 million, we're gonna need $30 million for the foreseeable future, for eternity. I heard eternity, I know you didn't say it.
And beyond.
I just don't remember 5 years ago having this kind of demand out there. So part of me is, it's like, why? Why do we have to have this future where we're gonna have to come up with $30 million a year forever? Why can't we go back to the days where we didn't have this many people on our streets? And how do we get back there? You know, what's it going to take collectively for us to get back there? Otherwise, we're just gonna continue to fund the kinds of, well, make it easier for those people who want to be out there on the it's not gonna come out right. We're just gonna continue to fund these kinds of things, and people are going to have to live, out on the streets, which is not desirable for them or for us. So I need to have time to analyze that, and is there any kind of investment that we can make so that we can go back to the way that it was where we didn't have so many people on the streets?
So, I mean,
I'm sorry.
So
Time machines, but, well, I think I would say.
Yeah, we still have minimum wage, federal minimum
Yeah.
wage, and
So-
housing has doubled in 4 years.
I can't speak to.
Well, I know, but there's a lot of addiction stuff, there's the reduction in mental health services, I don't know what
I think-
else there is that's
I think
out
what,
there.
I think what,
It's
so,
capitalism that's the issue?
well, so this is maybe how I would answer that question in some
Now we're
ways.
about to have a debate.
So, no, we're not, no, we're not. But I think I hear what you're saying, because I mean, that is, obviously all of our desire, that we get this to a place where it's not a $30 million a year challenge, because, we're able to invest big, and then we can sustain something at a much lower, because we've gotten really good at it. And I can tell you that, like, this, and I think we should ground ourselves in the fact that this is not unique to Tulsa. The question is gonna be which communities are gonna be willing to do what's necessary and which are not, and they're gonna deal with this issue in ways that are gonna be, continue to be a challenge. I think we also have to think about, the economic impact of not doing it, right? So, a lot of the challenges that we see, at least the ones that I hear about, are very pronounced for folks who do business downtown, for example. I mean, I think that's a visible issue, and it's having that kind of economic impact. And so, like, what's the, like, on the back end, like, what's the impact of the city for some of those members of the corporate community to stay here and feel like, Tulsa's a good place to be? So I think that's one factor as we think about, like, the investment, that part of it. And I also would say, like, one of the reasons I think so many cities have found themselves in a very similar position is because I think there was a thought that it might just kind of go away in some ways, and it just isn't without the investment. So, in Monroe's world, it's a time a lot less than eternity. But I think you have to set your chin for a sustained large investment that a local government, and we will be not the first, but we will be maybe in the first quarter of cities that are doing it. Every city's gonna have to do it eventually. And I think, it's gonna come with, I would imagine, more, just with media ordinances and everything else, like more aggressiveness on how you are addressing encampments and things like that, because now you have alternatives. So, as you think about the big picture of this, you're also building a system that doesn't exist right now, where you can really address what people are seeing every day and do it in a way where it just doesn't come back tomorrow. How long you have to do that? I think that we're gonna find that out, but I do think it's gonna take the kind of courage to be able to put the resources up to do it, and not necessarily kind of hope that somebody else is gonna do it. Because I think it took this much money to do it. Just we didn't have the federal government come do that, or we didn't have the state come do it. So I mean, I think it probably always cost this much. This is just the reality of putting it on paper and saying this is where we are.
Yeah, I guess there's more hope in that answer, not to say that yours was hopeless at all, but.
That's not the first time.
But if we jump in and we start giving the people the kind of case management services and other services, then I hope that it doesn't continue in the foreseeable future. That
It would be my
that we
desire,
are-
like, I think we would be holding
Functional
ourselves accountable
homelessness,
for metrics associated with those numbers going down, or as they come, like, we've become more efficient how we're dealing with it. I mean, some of this is like, this infrastructure does not exist. I mean, there's some setup costs to doing this.
I like thinking about this, I like trying to address this as a temporary issue, not a permanent issue, to the extent that we can. Second thing, and this may be more to you, but it may be to anybody, so some people have said, not everybody that I've talked to about this has said, but some have said, hey, look, I have a problem affording my own home. Now you're going to ask me to potentially pay more so that we can get people in other homes. We've already asked them with Improve Our Tulsa 3. We may be asking them for something else. It's not an easy question to answer. So, I know that there's community benefit for all of us if we collectively invest in those things. But how are you addressing that with individuals who say, hey, look, I'm having a problem on my own affording the things that I need in life. How am I going to afford something for other people as well?
Well, I think it's less about how I'm gonna afford something for other people as well. I mean, I think every single day, anybody who buys something in this community is essentially investing in things that are good across the board. I've not had a fire at my house, but I think a fire department's still a really good idea in case somebody else does. I've not necessarily been victimized, but I think the police department's a really good thing for people who are victimized. I think it's more of a statement of the kind of community that you want to live in. And what I actually hear is maybe something slightly different. I hear people frustrated when they have a problem, and my response oftentimes is we don't have the resources we need to take care of that. And so I think for some folks, I think there's folks who reasonably would disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I believe we have to, at some point, have a real conversation about what it takes to solve challenges that people are facing every day, and let people make that determination. So, I mean, I think it's part of real conversation. It's one that we'll have on Monday with this issue very specifically in that community conversation. Because what I believe is true about Tulsans, and I've heard, you saying you're absolutely right, it's a point of pride for us is that we are a generous city, but we are a city of accountability. And so I think it's more so, if you're gonna, if we're gonna invest in these things, how are we gonna know that it's working or not working? And I think that's what we owe to people, is that we are returning back to them a situation that looks materially different than the one they see today. And we're doing it in a way that might be different than maybe some of our other partners have taken it on. So I think it's more of a statement about who we are as a community to address this issue very aggressively. So that'd be my best answer for somebody.
Can I actually tack on part of an answer to that too? I have a.
Hold on, so we have 5 minutes to wrap this up, and we still have one more agenda item. So I'm going to go ahead and go in order of people that wanted to ask a question. I don't have a timer in here.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
To keep it short for you.
It'll be yes, no, answer,
Counselor-
from here on out, we're good.
Set 30 seconds.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you, there you go.
So,
Counselor Archie.
so let's just go with 1 year. So 30 million, it's a public-private partnership, so I wouldn't think all the 30 million is coming from us. Part of it is private. Is it gonna be difficult to get private partnerships to stick with us if we can't tell them that their investment will have to decrease over time, or will it have to stay the same? You know what I'm saying?
I think that the private philanthropic community in Tulsa has been deeply and arguably more invested in this than maybe the city has in a lot of ways. And so I don't know that I'm not sure it's a fear that we have to have. I think what they would like to see is that their resources are not used to do the things that speak directly to what should be public investments. And so I think more so it's the other side. They've already been there. The question is, city, when are you gonna spend the kind of resources that are gonna help us, take chunks out of this?
Okay, Counselor Gilbert, you still have?
I'll have a.
We're good?
I'll find it.
Okay,
Mhm.
all righty.
Your question was 30 seconds, your answer was a little, I'm kidding. No,
Hey.
the mayor's answer, I'm just joking. And I apologize if this is something that was verbalized. I was watching from my office while I was counting.
Sure you are.
Yeah, but there could have been a brief gap in there. I think going back to Counselor Lakin's question, which is a good one, because I get the same thing from constituents where it's that matter of, what's the ROI on this for like my everyday life, or I'm also struggling in these other ways. Coming from someone who works in healthcare, I always think about this as that upstream, like we know when we invest in certain things upstream, it saves money downstream, because these are issues that are expensive for us in other ways when we don't take care of them, and we see that all the time, whether it's in our jails or medical settings, or just all the cleanup or property damage that happens from people having nowhere else to go. But something I've thought about a lot, going back to another question Councilor Lakin mentioned that I wanted to kind of verbalize for us that I think could be helpful framing for how a lot of us think about this, is kind of the stabilizing funding factor given state and federal instability. And one of the questions that you had asked earlier that's a good one is, this didn't look this bad 5 years ago, which is fascinating, right? Because it was the pandemic, there was the, the kind of moratorium on evictions, but at the same time people were really economically struggling, so you could have thought then homelessness might look worse. Why is it worse today. And one of the biggest factors when you look, and I think this might have been commented at the table, so let me know if I'm rehashing something, is right, we had federal dollars, CARES and ARPA, et cetera, then. But part of what we got to do with those then that makes me feel good about further investing now is we actually got to like pilot and invest and scale a lot of successful community solutions through those federal dollars. So we do know a lot of stuff that works, but we've never gotten to do further quality improvement with it, scale it, double down on it, because those dollars went away, which when those went away, that's where you do see over time as those have dried up, you have seen homelessness increasing paired with other economic hardships. But to me, it's really reassuring to go, hey, the times that we did actually have dollars to allocate to some of these programs and make a real difference, we did it. We really did see good results from it, or else homelessness, especially during the pandemic, would have been a lot worse. And now we have this opportunity to go, how do we sustain some of that, knowing especially what we've seen happen with mental health funding, where when it gets unstable, there's threats to programs locally that we know are very successful. And so for me, I see this as like an opportunity for us to stabilize what we have and then scale the things that really work more than us, you know, betting on all sorts of new things. I'm hearing a lot more of, we have a lot of things in place, it's more about quality improvement and efficiency. So that's just kind of the way I'm processing through it, and to me then that ultimately can be cost saving because we're not paying for downstream problems to just keep happening and keep being exacerbated.
Okay.
Was that 30 seconds?
That was more than 30
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It also was a question, so she said 30
I
So
quite
we
agree
really
with
need
those
to,
terms.
we really need to wrap up, you guys, because we have 4 o'clock still, and it's been, what,
I was just
25 minutes
reclaiming
till
some
5 o'clock. So, I think, we need to go on to item number 6, like ASAP.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopeless, Mr. Hopeless.
Mr. Hopper.
All righty.
You're on the bill, so like, I wear
Item
that
number
as a badge
6,
of honor.
discussion with the city attorney and council administrator on the proposed city council 2026 charter amendment schedule and the charter amendment process. Do we have,
Good afternoon, councilors. I'll be very quick. So you have the draft schedule in front of you. I sent that out a couple of weeks ago, a week ago. So the charter provides that the council will provide by ordinance for a process for periodically reviewing the charter. And the ordinance provides that on or before October 15th of every odd-numbered year, I will provide you with this schedule, which I've done. And you will see that this lays out a process kind of aiming toward August, the August election date, and it establishes a process through the spring by which you will kind of come up, generate any ideas that you might have or that you might be hearing from your constituents, and present those to your colleagues for consideration. All we're asking for now is consideration of the schedule itself. That has to be approved and filed with the city clerk by November 15th. So it's scheduled for a vote on November 5th. If you could review the schedule, see if you have any changes, we can discuss those before you're asked to vote on the 5th. And then through the spring, you can develop ideas for actual proposed amendments.
all righty, thank you. I think item 7, we are adjourned. Should we take 2 minutes?